Welcome to the 114th video in our series about Unix tools. For the last 30 or 40 videos, we've been using the Ubuntu system, and it's time to do an upgrade. As you can see, when I logged in, it tells me there are no updates, but at the same time, it says the list of updates is more than a week old. I need to do a sudo apt update. And then they also say, hey, there's a new release. I need to do this. And so when you see all these messages, you may wonder, wow, what do I do? So keep in mind the do release upgrade. But first, we need to make sure our system's as up to date as we can get it. So we need to do a sudo bash. Remember, it wants the password for John. There shouldn't be any password for root. And, whatever your login user is that you specified when you installed Ubuntu as being your primary user. Okay, we're going to do an apt get update. And then we're going to do an apt get dist upgrade, and we're going to use that -d option I talked about before to download everything. And it shows the following packages have been kept back, and there are 4 of them, and there's nothing else. So we're as up to date as we can be for our Ubuntu 23.10. Okay, but it's time to get this 24.4.1 long-term stable and do it. So I'm going to do the do release upgrade. Okay, and show you what it's going to look like. You need to make sure you're using some sort of UPS and you want a solid network connection. Don't do this during a storm or during the middle of the day when they're on campus, when we tend to lose power on every pretty day. Okay, we're going to continue. Yes or no? It says to sign up, do this stuff, continue yes or no, and you have to sort of wonder, continue what? Because I really don't want to sign up. So, let's see. Welcome to 2404 Noble Numbat. It's proud to announce this stuff. Blah, blah, blah. We have to say yes. So, there we go. And it's going to do a massive sort of download operation. It hasn't started yet, but it will. So, this session appears to be running under SSH. It is not recommended to perform an upgrade over SSH currently because in case of failure, it is hard to recover. And they tell you that an additional SSH daemon will be started on another port. And so, wow, what do you do? This has to do with the fact that doing an upgrade of your Ubuntu system remotely is highly dangerous, because if anything goes wrong, you can't touch the machine. You can't log in at the console. You're doomed. If something goes wrong and it drops the connection, you're going to have to reinstall. So what should we do? We should probably say no at this point. But because this is an instructional video and I'm feeling optimistic today, I'm going to give it a try. And I'm going to try to do this anyway. And we'll just see what happens. So, to make recovery in case of failure easier, an additional SSHD will be started on port 1022. If anything goes wrong with the running SSH, you can still connect to the additional one. If you run a firewall, you may need to temporarily open this port. As this is potentially dangerous, it's not automatic, but they tell you what to do. So, okay, we'll Control Z, and you notice Control Z didn't work. Control Z should suspend the thing so I could put that firewall rule in, but it didn't let me do it. And this kind of shows you one of the weaknesses. It's not specific to Ubuntu, but most Linux distributions, you don't upgrade often. So those upgrade systems don't get tested nearly as much as regular packages do. The probability of failure is much higher with an upgrade like this, where we're doing a release upgrade, than it is with the normal apt-get dist upgrade. Okay, it says, and we can read this, 156 packages are removed, 287 new packages are going to be installed, and 1,500 are going to be upgraded, and those all have to come off the network. And they tell you, you have to download, well, 5.5, close to 6 gigabytes. Don't do this if you have some sort of metered networking where you have to pay by the byte. You know, you go to the coffee shop and you order 3 coffees and some donuts, and then you do this. Okay? And so you have to make sure that you're going to be able to stay connected long enough to get all that done. Installing the upgrade can take several hours, they warn you. And once the download has finished, the process cannot be canceled. Blah, blah, blah. Let's do it. Okay. Obviously, I can't have a several hour long video, but I am on campus at the Burrapah University Faculty of Informatics. It's 7:30 p.m. on a weekday, and it's not an exam week. So our network is probably running pretty well. And you could see I'm getting 2 megasecond download speed, which is pretty good for this part of the planet. We're not in Bangkok, we're not inside a data center, and we're not some VIP, but this is pretty good bandwidth. If you're doing this in your dormitory or apartment, or maybe you've gone home to visit your parents or family, you're in a hotel, you can't really expect this kind of bandwidth. And they did warn us it can take hours. And if you're on a slow link, it can take many hours. They sort of try to give you an update down here in the bottom right. It's telling us right now we're 1 hour and 3 minutes away from being done. So you see it keeps climbing, 2 hours and 22 minutes. And you notice that the university has rather uneven download speeds. We're at 6 meg. It says we need 19 minutes. A few seconds ago, it said I'm going to need it over an hour. Why is that? The downloader downloads from multiple different sites, and different sites have different speeds. You could see I'm downloading from the US. Most of you will be downloading from some Thai site, but I rigged mine to hook up to the US site to make sure that I'm using the genuine Ubuntu and not some modified version. Because I'm a native English speaker, I want the English version of Ubuntu. I don't want something that's been modified for Thai language, because I won't be able to read it. Okay. We're about 10 minutes into the video, and you can see we have 11 more minutes of download. So I have to cut this video in one go, and then post-processing, I will slice the video up and edit it somewhat to make it so you don't have to watch this whole boring download process. It all looks the same. It's not important to read each one. What we have to do is wait until it's done downloading. You see it's at 15% here. And now we're back to the 1 hour and 22 minute estimate. The estimate jumps all over the place. Have faith and pray a little bit. We need good luck, and we have to hope that we don't get disconnected in the middle of all this. So, since I said that it was unwise to attempt an upgrade remotely, why am I doing it? Because most of you are going to, at some point soon, be using cloud machines. You know, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, they're a fact of life. They're here to stay. They're not going to go away. And many schools and businesses, when they need a high performance machine, they do not want to invest in the actual hardware you can touch and feel. They're going to tell you use cloud machines. So you're going to need to know how to manage your cloud machine. Even if someone else set everything up for you, if you use it for more than 6 months, you're going to need to update it. I've shown you how to do the simple day-to-day updates, but Ubuntu at least once a year, and sometimes more often, is going to have a complete new release. You don't want stale software. You don't want to be missing out on the current feature set. You don't want to be missing out on current bug fixes. And so, unless you have some commercial software that warns you not to update, and if you're using that, you're not an open source person anyway. Contact your vendor. But if you're an open source or poor person, then yeah, we have to do these upgrades. And you're going to have to do it remotely for the cloud, and you're going to have to pray nothing bad happens. I found it interesting that they told you to set the firewall, and then when I tried to do a Control Z to suspend so I could actually put that command in, it treated Control Z as what's a nice way to say it? A suggestion, and it just didn't do it. So we're hoping that nothing goes wrong. Something else I should tell you, should warn you, especially if you're new to this sort of thing. When they have a new version available, do not upgrade on the first day. Okay? Don't upgrade for the first week. Give it a couple of weeks if you can. That will let the people who are brave, who go first, trigger all the bugs, report the bugs will get fixed. So if you wait a couple of weeks after the release and then you do your upgrade, many small bugs will have been fixed since the official release announcement and when you attempt this upgrade. And that's going to save you headaches, going to save you trouble. The same thing happens a lot in life. Whenever a car company or a motorcycle company redesigns one of their popular vehicles, all new version of the Honda Civic for 2025. Well, don't buy the 2025. Wait till 2026, the second year, after they get all those, bugs out of the initial version. And this is the same thing for software, but of course, software lifetimes aren't measured in years like cars. They're measured in months nowadays. At this point, I'm 16 minutes or so into my attempt to upgrade the system, and I've reached 34% of the download completion. And it's still taking quite a bit of time. The estimate, though, looks nice. It says 6 minutes and 50 seconds remain, and we've seen the estimate go as high as an hour and a half, so let's hope we keep moving at this pretty good rate. You can see I'm now up to 10 meg per second, which is the limit of higher than the limit of normal Ethernet. So I guess you can sort of realize I'm on 1 gig Ethernet between me and upstream. And if you're working through WAP, or if you're in some place that doesn't have fiber, at least to your data center, you're not going to get these rates of download. Just have to be patient. Remember earlier I said order 3 cups of coffee and several donuts. Yep. Just keep enjoying that coffee and munching on the donuts. And because we're doing this over putty, right, there's no reason why you can't do something else while you wait, but you need to make sure you can still see this screen in case it does error or it needs some response from you. Because if everything succeeds, it's still going to ask some questions later on in the installation. So if you do get tempted to fire up your YouTube video or do a little social media, you need to make sure that you can still monitor the progress of your SSH session, just in case you need to give it some attention. To keep this video shorter, I didn't do a full backup of the system. I've shown you several times how to make zip files and how to make compressed tar archives of the files that are important to you. That will at least be your dollar home, and you'll want to back that up and copy it out to some other machine before you start this upgrade. Because if you have to reinstall, which sometimes will happen, you get lucky sometimes you don't. And if you have to reinstall from scratch, you don't want to lose all the files in your home directory. If you have other custom configuration, you've spent weeks setting up some other user account, you need to make sure you back up everything that you've modified since your original installation. If you're a heavy-duty sysadmin type, that will also include things like firewall settings, network tuning, Much of that lives in /etc. And if you were able to do all those things, you know where the files are, and you need to make sure you back up those files and copy them to another machine before you start your upgrade. The good news is I'm now at 64%, and I've been doing this for 20 minutes. So that's not bad. I think many of the people watching this video are from the younger generations and don't remember just how awful it was to take a stack of floppy diskettes and do this sort of thing. And use at that time, you would need to download everything to the diskettes, copy it onto the diskettes, and then attempt the upgrade. And the update depended on how good your floppy diskettes were. And those things were not very reliable, even if you bought a good brand. So you might finish 20 or 25 floppies, and then you hit the bad one. And when that happens, the whole installer would crash, and you'd have to start over, and you'd need another machine, at a friend's house or something, to remake that bad floppy so you could keep trying. Those problems are gone, thankfully. But you remove the problem with the media, and now we depend on the network bandwidth and the network reliability. And in other videos, I'm sure you've heard me complain about just how bad the network is in my apartment where I live. It will just randomly drop packets. It also gets into disconnect cycles. When Thailand's power is not super reliable if you're outside of Bangkok. And 2 nights ago, we had a storm. And although I had a UPS for my machine, there is no UPS for all the wireless access points. And every time we had a strong lightning hit, those things would reboot. And I had to keep re-authenticating. I must have re-authenticated 20 times that night to try to keep my network going. And I would never attempt this kind of upgrade in that environment. You have to make sure you have no storm at all. And it's really better to carry your machine, if you can, to some place that's going to have a more reliable wired network. Not everybody has that, has that ability. You may not have any place you can go. But if you're affiliated with Burapha University, you can probably bring your machine to campus. And like I said, don't do it in the daytime. Don't do it during final exam week or midterm week. Don't do it in the, at the end of the semester when the teachers are grading. The network is very busy and the power is not great because everybody's here in person running the air conditioner. But on a normal school night when nothing else is going on, if you get here after 7 p.m., there's no storm, things are pretty reliable. I see you, even though you don't think I do. You're looking at the bottom left where it says 79%, and you're looking at the bottom right where it says 4 minutes and 1 second. And you're sort of hoping this is really going to be done soon. I am too. I have to admit, it's a little bit boring to just stare at the download while it's occurring. But this is not something that you can just hit the button and walk away. I need to be able to see any error message if we get one. So far, we've been lucky. And you notice that it's back to 28 minutes. And now it's down to 11. It jumps all over the place. So you have to be emotionally tough enough that when it jumps down to 2 minutes, you know it's not really 2 minutes. It's just saying 2 minutes right now, and then it's going to jump back up and it's going to say 20 minutes again. It's better to watch the number on the bottom left, the percentage. And that'll give you a better idea of how long it's going to take to get everything done. Why do you want to stay updated? I explained that earlier, but maybe I need to say a little bit more. If your software is already working, you might think, well, just don't change anything. And that's how people did it back in MS-DOS and Windows 3.11 for work groups, and when they had the Novell networks. Machines were updated maybe once every 2 years. And they would just shut the whole place down, and technicians would come in and update every single machine. And nobody would come to work when that's happening. But that's not the way it happens anymore. And the reason why is the pace of change is so rapid. And with rapid change, you've also got a whole culture of people attacking all the time, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Somebody is trying to crack into your network, into your machine. They're trying to do those ransomware attacks. They're trying to steal data. It's happening all the time. And so you can't afford to just say, I'm not going to upgrade. I don't care. Many software projects make security fixes, but don't tell you that. They just say, oh, look, here's the new version. It's got new features. And they just don't talk about, oh, and we fixed all these bugs that are security related too. They don't talk about it because they're embarrassed, and they don't want people to know just how bad it used to be. So you need to stay up to date. And you see we've reached a milestone here, and it's starting to unpack software, and it's starting to do stuff, and it's upgrading the system. And it has to do this in phases. You saw earlier it updated libc and several low-level libraries that everything uses, and now it's cranking through more stuff. So, what was I saying before? I was saying you got to stay up to date. The other reason you want to stay up to date is when you need help on the internet and you're using free and open source software, so there's no, commercial vendor to call, and you need to get help from volunteers. Well, the volunteers that might help you are going to be the people who work on that software. The people who are sending in patches and maintaining the website for the project. Those people. They're going to be on GitHub or GitLab or somewhere like that. And what they're going to tell you is, if you're using some old version, they're going to say, we don't support that anymore. You need to run the current version, and we'll help you with that. And you say, well, I don't want to upgrade my system because, it's working right now. Those people are going to say, fine, you fix it. And since they're not being paid to help you, you can't really, it's just not fair to be angry with them for that. If you bought your software from Oracle, or you bought your software from Adobe or somebody like that, yes, you can call and you can say, "Hey, I paid money for this, thousands of dollars. You have to fix it." And if you have good lawyers, they have to fix it. But with the free and open source software, they are not required to fix it. Getting mad at them and demanding that they fix some old version is not going to make you their friend, and they'll just quit responding to you altogether. You need to do your part, which is keep your system up to date. And then most of the time, if your system is reasonably up to date, most of the time, those people will help you if they can. But software projects are huge. And so most people, they know they're part of the project, but they don't know everything. Just like Linux. Linux has millions of lines of source code for the kernel. And Linus Torvalds is a genuine genius and still works on it. But he doesn't know every single device driver. He doesn't know every single CPU. He works on Intel kind of CPUs, and if you came in there with a problem with your Spark or your RISC-V, he might have to say, I'm not sure, and tell you to ask a different developer, even though Linus is the king of the Linux system. Every project is like that, but of course most projects are smaller than that. And so when you need help, don't get mad if the first guy gives you a silly suggestion or doesn't really know. Also, many of those developers are going to ask you to, well, did you compile a debug version? Did you try the version from head, the latest Git version, which requires you to do a Git pull and a build that your distro didn't do yet? And then if you're a moody person, you might be mad at your distro. How come my distro didn't upgrade everything for me? Even the distros that you pay for, like Red Hat Enterprise Linux, that's not free. You have to pay money for that. Even they run old software sometimes. And the reason they do it is because it took a long, long time to get everything debugged. Because remember, each piece of the software was written by different people. Each one might work by itself, but you have to get them all to work together at the same time and not fight over memory and CPU and fight over the disk files, resource conflicts. And you have to make sure that when Project A calls the library from Project B, that it's using the right API. And sadly, APIs in the free and open source software world, they change every time the wind blows, because people don't understand you need a stable API. There are exceptions, but in general, people just, they do whatever they want. And this is why enterprise distributions tend to run older software with lots of patches. They try to make sure they fix the bugs, but they don't want to change any APIs anywhere. Because if you change one, it's like dominoes. You change one, you got to change them all. And then you have to test them all. And because they're a commercial enterprise and you paid money, that means they have to worry about, if it doesn't work, you're going to send the lawyers, you're going to go to court, you're going to sue somebody. That doesn't happen often, but they have to plan for that. We're on Ubuntu. Ubuntu comes from Debian. So one of the things of, why didn't Ubuntu upgrade it? Well, they have to wait till Debian upgrades it most of the time. There are some Debian things that Ubuntu doesn't do, and there are some Ubuntu things that are not in Debian. But most of Ubuntu is like Debian. It's based on Debian. And then they add some extra stuff over at Ubuntu to have better foreign language support and more easier system administration tools that use a graphic user interface for newbie users that Debian doesn't have. Also, Debian is really strict about licensing, and they don't take anything that's a gray area. Anything that's not 100% free open source software, they don't want it. And that means you don't get drivers for CUDA and your NVIDIA card like that. Ubuntu includes those gray area things. They do some tricks and they say, well, you have to, opt in, but they have it. And that's why a lot of people in Thailand are going to choose Ubuntu. Is it has most of the great stuff from Debian, but it's easier to use, and it comes with the software you really need to get the job done. Even when that software maybe is not completely free and open source like it should be. So that means that Ubuntu can't upgrade everything until Debian does. And Debian isn't a paid distribution. It's run by volunteers. So people have something happen in their life, they have a new baby or they change jobs or something like that. They might not be able to work on the software for a week or two or a month. And that's just how it is. They're doing it for free. You can't complain they didn't come to work. They'll do it when they get ready to do it. Okay, that's an awful lot of talk about why things are the way they are. Almost no software is 100% current all the time. There are two distributions that try their best. One of them is called Linux from scratch, and you have to build all the software yourself. Linux from scratch has great instructions and explains things well. But of course, you have to be willing to spend a week building a system, because you're going to have to compile every single package, many of them more than one time, and any mistake means you start over. The other choice is Gentoo. Gentoo tries to do what Linux from scratch does, but Gentoo tries to make it automatic. And so you can give some parameters to Gentoo, and you can say, I want you to optimize for my, Zen 3 chip or my Core i9. You tell it exactly the hardware that you want it to support, and then you turn it loose. So those two projects tend to have the most up-to-date software available. But they also tend to be unstable because of those changing APIs. And so maybe you updated your codec. You have some special codec for, MP4, a really wonderful codec. And you update that. Well, if the FFmpeg doesn't know the new API, when you try to build FFmpeg, it's going to say, oh, that one's broken, and it's not going to include it. And so somebody has to do a patch to the FFmpeg to fix it. And that means going to the FFmpeg website, putting in the bug, explaining what's wrong, wait a little time, and then maybe FFmpeg will fix it in their version control, their Git. And then you have to pull from Git and get the patch that you want. And that's why, all those things take time. And let's say you fix FFmpeg. Well, there are other software packages in the system that use FFmpeg libraries. GStreamer is one, and it uses FFmpeg. Well, if you change the audio codec for your MP4, and that meant you had to patch your FFmpeg and change that, now your FFmpeg library is different, so that's going to break GStreamer. Okay, fine. You send in a bug report, you wait, you get your patch for the GStreamer. Takes a week or two. And then, daggone it, it turns out that, QT is trying to use GStreamer, and QT isn't patched yet. So you see why the Gentoo and the Linux from scratch, sometimes they'll be a little unstable because somebody upgraded a library and they didn't have all the patches for everything that depends on that library. People like Ubuntu move more slowly to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And so you have a trade-off. Do you want the latest, most powerful version of the software, or do you want something that's maybe 6 months old, but it's not very buggy? Or do you want to go with an enterprise solution where you pay money for support? The software is from 3 or 4 years ago, but when it breaks, all you do is call them and say, "Hey, it's broken," and they have to go find what's wrong. They have to go send in the bug report. They have to make the patches or pay somebody to make the patches and fix all that for you. That's what you get with paid support, is they take care of all those headaches for you. Now you can see, if you take a look at the screen, we're putting in Linux header files, and it's working on the LLVM compiler. So we're at 42 minutes into our upgrade from 2310 to 24041, and so far we haven't crashed, we haven't gotten an error message. Network is solid, power is good. This is running in a virtual machine, which would be very similar to a cloud, but this is on premises. But that means that it's not as fast as it would be on real hardware with an SSD. If you're still using a hard disk because you needed the larger capacity, or that's some old machine that you could get, this part is slower. The download's the same, it doesn't matter, but this unpacking is much slower if you have to use an actual SATA, a SATA hard disk, or even if you have a nice hardware and you have SAS SCSI hard disks. Hard disks are slower than the modern SSDs. So this part of the installation, where they were doing the unpacking, will be slower. When you get back to the setting up and removing, this is fast, because this is working on a few files at a time. It's not doing compression or decompression. It's not writing megabytes. It's doing kilobytes. Lots of times, but not too bad. You saw the phases, right? We did the download, then we did the unpack, now it's doing the setup, which is a configuration step. And sometimes it looks like it's going to go forever. It's not going to go forever. One of two things will happen. It will either finish or it will crash. And we're praying that it will finish successfully, but we don't know yet. There are two basic types of Ubuntu installation: server installation and desktop installation. The desktop installations have the complete graphical user interface environment, and they're going to have more packages, so it's going to take longer to upgrade when you do a when you do an upgrade to a new version of the Ubuntu distribution. Most people on the cloud are going to run some kind of server version, and it shouldn't be too bad. But if you have to have the GUI libraries for some reason, say you're a newbie and you need to have the GUI configuration tools for your networking, then you're going to pay a price. Okay, we've finished all the downloading, we've finished all the unpacking, we've done all the automatic setup, and now you can see that we're being asked a question about the OpenSSH server. And it says, oh, there's a new version of the config, but yours has been locally modified. What do I do? Well, the first thing you should do is show the differences. And you look and you say, wow, that's just a silly difference. Okay? That's in a comment. Okay? It's just a comment. So we go down, hit the tab, go to OK, press enter, and we're going to say install the package maintainers version, because the only difference was a comment, and we'd rather have the official version. Okay, and it says I've replaced it. And then we keep on cranking. But that's why I said you need to keep a window open so you can monitor the progress of your upgrade. Because if you don't answer that question, it'll sit there till forever, and it won't finish, and you'll wonder why didn't it finish? And it's because they asked you a question and you didn't answer it. Here's another one. Okay, it's talking about Grub PC, and just like the other one, OpenSSH, which is critical, you can't connect if that's broken. Well, Grub is about your boot up. So if this breaks, you can't boot the virtual machine. So let's see what it says. It says a new version of the file is available, but the version installed has been locally modified. Again, let's see what's different. Okay. They take a look at this. The one with the minuses is the one that they want to use, I think. Let's look at the date and time. They're the same. Okay, let's go back and take a look at this question. A new version is the one with HGK. Okay, so the HGK is the new version. The old version had countdown, the new version has hidden. The old version has this stuff, the new version has this stuff. This is a tough one because I want the timeout style to be countdown, but I want this new better Grub distributor. So what I have to do is take a pencil and paper somewhere and write down, okay, it's set to default Grub. I write down the file name, and then I say, don't forget to change Grub timeout style to countdown, and then I accept the new version, but I have to remember to go make that change after everything else is done. So I'm hunting on my desk for a piece of paper right now that I can use. I can't very well tell you to do it if oh, there's a dead pencil. All right. I'm not going to lose my temper. I've got another pencil. Here we go. So I'm writing down etc. default Grub, and I have to go look for uppercase Grub timeout style, and I need to change it back to the countdown that I want. Because if you don't do the countdown, you don't have a chance to choose a different kernel or anything. Okay, so we're done with the comparison. We took some notes. We like this change down here about grub distributor, and we're going to accept the hidden change, and then we'll just go undo it later. So we come up here and we say install the package maintainers version. We're now at 50 minutes into the video, and we're still waiting for it to go. It's updating the initial RAM file system that it's going to run when it boots. So this is all related to that grub booting stuff. Okay, now what's it doing now? It says this may take some time. If you look at this, you can see it's setting up things for LaTeX, because I have a full LaTeX install. Most of you don't. I had to, do some work to install that. But when you're working on research papers, I don't write any, but I do formatting. I help other teachers format their papers sometimes. And so I never want to have to stop and install one more tech package. I installed everything. Most of the time, that's great. It takes a lot of disk, but this is one of those times when it's not so great, because when you upgrade it, it takes quite a while. It has to scan thousands and thousands of files and update its own internal databases that tell it where fonts are and stuff like that. By now, you should be on that third cup of coffee, and you're probably ate all the donuts, and you're starting to worry, because you're thinking, is this ever going to end? Okay, we've reached a question, and it says 557 packages are going to be removed. This can take several hours. And they say that because if you're really using a hard disk like SATA or SAS, it really will take several hours. If you're using an SSD, it won't be quite so bad. If you press D, it would tell you exactly which packages are going away. But I don't care. If they don't want them, I don't want them. So I say yes, and I hit the button, and it starts the removal process. And you're going to get just all sorts of errors in here. I've never done this and had it with 0 warning messages. I used to worry a whole lot about it, but now what I try to do is say, if it was really bad, it would have stopped and crashed. So I ignore the rest of them. So far, we've had a pretty smooth installation. The one thing we have to go back and do that we know about is fix our etc default grub timeout style, but everything else seems okay so far. And you could sort of get an idea of Tech Live 2023 is going out, because we've got Tech Live 2024 and lots of other things are happening. And now look, yeah, it's like the punishment box. Once we removed the old LaTeX, that confused LaTeX internal databases, and you have to rebuild them again. This is one of those areas where the upstream distribution could be a little smarter, but it's already a tough job. So we'll give them a break on that one. And we're going to say, A problem occurred during the cleanup. Please see below message. Install archives failed. System upgrade is complete. Restart required. And you're looking at this and you say, wait a minute. Please see the message below. Install archives failed. Which archives failed? And then it says system upgrade is complete. You need to restart. And exception during PM-DO install, subprocess, depackage, return an error code. And now you're really starting to worry. And you can see, oh, it's because this is an AMD. Why wasn't the guy using an Intel? You know, everybody's got their thing. For me, I'm going to say everything's probably okay. And whatever this stuff is about PM-DO install, you know, we could scroll backwards and try to look a little bit more. But we didn't get anything about grub failure. We didn't get anything about kernel install failure. libc didn't give us any errors. I think we're going to be okay. I'm going to say no here. And it says, oh, command attached from window. And you have to say, press X to destroy the window. So I press X. It says screen is terminating. Okay, I need to go modify my etc. Default grub. And they tell you, if you change this file, you have to run update grub. Okay, but I don't want hidden. I told you I want a countdown. And I have to run this update grub afterwards. Okay, I'm going to run update grub. It says it did it. Okay, we spent an hour, 56 minutes for this update. We got a scary message at the end, and I have hinted we don't need to worry about it. We're going to find out. At this point, I need to reboot the system. Since I'm using a virtual machine, it's not really going to be happy about rebooting from secure shell. So I'm going to have to exit this, and I'll just do a halt instead. And you can see I'm disconnected. So that's it for this video. The next video will show you what happens. Did it reboot or not? Stay with me. And thank you for listening.